Wondery Plus subscribers can listen to Morbid early and ad-free. Join Wondery Plus in the Wondery app or on Apple Podcasts.
You're listening to a Morbid Network podcast.
Redacted, Declassified Mysteries is a new podcast hosted by me, Luke LaManna. Each week, I dive into the hidden truths behind the world's most powerful institutions, from covert government experiments to bizarre assassination attempts. Follow Redacted on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, weirdos, I'm Ash.
And I'm Alaina.
And this is Morbid.
It sure is.
It's like kind of morbid in the morning, but I've been awake since like 5, so I'm ready to go. My voice doesn't sound different. I'm wide awake.
It's true. You don't have that. I loved that. You don't have that like tired Ash voice.
No,
which I love still.
Thank you.
I love that voice.
When I just like, I don't even realize that I'm doing it, but when we do Morbid in the morning and we listen back, it's literally like, I'm like, yeah, and you know, then this happened. And then like halfway through the episode, I'm like, yeah, Alaina, I know, right? It's crazy. It's like the craziest thing.
It shifts so hard halfway through the episode because I'll be editing it and I'm like, oh, you woke up. Like, it's just like,
here you are,
Ash. You're there because it goes from like, yeah. And then exactly what you just said. It's like, oh my god, yeah,
Alaina, literally,
wild.
I know.
He was wild and
crazy.
That's crazy.
Doing butt stuff with the devil. Join our Patreon if you want to know anything about that.
If you want to know that inside joke.
But yeah, I think we have like a little bit of business. I was just going to remind you guys that we do have a summer solstice show that is actually coming up, baby. It's going to be June 20th. Yes, it is Father's Day. Go find a dad and watch it with him. And tickets are available at onlocationlive.com/category/morbid. If you didn't have time to write that down, you can just go over to the link in our bio, honey.
Woo!
And then we do have like a ton of new merch, which is like so dope. And it's really just like, I love it. I've been wearing it almost every single day. So if you want to get you some of that, you can head over to shop.morbidpodcast.com. And if you're a Patreon, don't forget that you get 20% off.
Woo! Look at that.
Look at me doing the business.
Look at that shill. That was a real quick shill. We love that.
It was a chill.
It was a chill.
But if you have clicked on this episode, you know what we're talking about today.
But honestly, before we jump in, I know everybody's like, no, jump right into the case. Like, why are you still talking?
What's up, girl?
I just wanted to quickly say, like, guys, Lake Lanier is popping off right now.
People are tweeting at me being like, are you psychic? Like,
yeah, what?
Anytime I feel like there have been times where we will cover a case.
Yes. And then weird happens.
We have both been sent TikToks of like floating feet in the water, except not floating, submerged.
I don't know if like maybe we can post it or something, but people keep tagging us and thank you for tagging us because like in this TikTok where this guy is at Lake Lanier. And there's like happy, jaunty music playing.
Literally.
And he's like, just another day at a haunted lake.
There's like a tire swing in the distance.
And there's clearly feet under the murky water. And I was like, I have many questions. One, why did this pop up suddenly the day after we do the Lake Lanier episode? And then 2, has anyone contacted this man and found out what is going on here? Or has anyone found these feet?
And then not only that, we both just found out like 20 minutes ago while we were just having a quick little brekkie together that there was a fire at Lake Lanier. And at least one person is, I think it said seriously injured. So
yeah, so what is happening? Sorry, I don't know if we shook the universe or what, but like...
I know.
Damn. I mean, I don't know how to put it back.
If we do have universe shaking capabilities, I hope that this case like shakes up something new because we've got unsolved case for you today.
Air bunnies.
It's a confusing case, that's for sure.
I'm excited to hear about it.
We're going to be talking about the Phillip Island murder and the Phillip Island disappearance, if that's going to make sense to you.
I'm ready.
This is like the epitome of like small town where everyone knows everybody and nothing ever happens until this.
Until it happened.
Yeah. So before we get into it, I actually just wanted to shout out the book, The Phillip Island Murder. It was co-written by Vicky Petratus, and I've actually read a couple of her books.
Yeah, and she was on Case File.
And actually, Case File did an entire, I believe, 10-part series on this specific case where they just went into like crazy detail. Vicky Petratus spent 2 years researching this case. Yeah, before she wrote her book. And she said that she's still getting constant information.
That's awesome.
It's crazy.
Also, go listen to Case File if you haven't, because you'll enjoy it.
Oh, yeah. And let me pull up the name of the actual limited series. So it's presented by Case File.
Guys, remember when Case File read an ad like for Morbid?
Alaina, I bet. Do you think of that every night before you go to sleep?
My world shattered when that happened.
I think I was like at work and you texted me and you were like, and like sent me an audio clip and I was like, okay.
I have like the audio clip like saved.
It was a huge deal.
It's still a big deal. I'm still freaking out.
It's never not going to be a huge deal.
Case File is like my one of my OGs.
How do we collab with Case File since he's anonymous?
Case File.
At Case File.
At Case File. Can we collab? I would.
He could do like the whole thing that like the anonymous group does. I just like wear that on his face and we'll never know who he is.
We don't have to Zoom. We could do it over
via the telephone
if you want. Case File.
We can make anything work. Are you free today? Me too.
At Case File.
Are you free next year? I'm free every day next year.
We're gonna talk Case File. We got to make this happen.
But thank you for that like little thing while I was pulling this.
You're welcome. I figured it would help.
I was right. It is a 10-part podcast and it's called The Vanishing of Vivian Cameron.
So go listen to it.
Go listen to that if you want like a crazy deep dive.
Because they dive deep.
Dizzity deep.
Like Lake and Lanier deep.
not that deep.
Not that deep.
Well, Phillip Island is an Australian island, so we're over in Australia, and it is home to more penguins than it is people. And I think every place should just be like that.
Yeah, that just tells you exactly what's happening there.
It actually has the largest little penguin colony in the entire world.
Get that out of here.
Little penguin community. And like I didn't say like, oh, it has like a little penguin community. No, it's literally a little penguin community, but it's gigantic.
Oh my God. Stop.
And every night there is a penguin parade where people can watch penguins all come out of the sea and into their little burrows for the night.
I think that is the happiest place on earth.
Like if we ever go to Australia, I don't even care about like putting my luggage wherever it needs to go. We're taking it with us and we're going to the penguin parade.
We're going to the penguin parade.
And you might be saying to me, Ash Kell, why are you talking to me about penguins on a true crime podcast? Well, don't worry.
Okay, good.
Because it was while working at the penguin parade that a very well-established, well-to-do gentleman from a very prominent family in the area named Fergus Cameron met a young, attractive woman named Elizabeth Beth Barnard. Now, Fergus and his family were prominent members in society because they were actually founding members of the They were founding members of the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit, which is like a nice racetrack on the island.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like a big deal over there.
Makes sense.
Now, Beth was originally from Melbourne, Australia.
Melbourne.
She came to Phillip Island to work, and her family had a home on the island, so that's where she was staying. Fergus and Beth became friendly while they were working together at the penguin parade. And after some time of knowing each other, she also started to help out on the farm that Fergus and his family owned together. So she was a farmhand and they worked together at the penguin parade, which I want to go work at the penguin parade.
Yeah, come on.
Ideal job.
You'll never work a day in your life.
Seriously.
You do what you love.
Our cousin Heather used to work at the aquarium, and she was like in the penguin exhibit, and oh my God.
Yeah,
I think that's the coolest job ever.
She also like went to different continents and like saved penguins from like oil spills and stuff. She's like a Badass.
Shout out to our cousin Heather.
Shout out to Heather, the marine biologist.
She wrote a book, didn't she?
She was in the book, yeah. She was like in a movie about it. She's badass.
She's badass. But this is Australia.
Yeah, not Heather.
Not Heather. But we love you, Heather. Now, Fergus was a married man. Oh. He was married to a woman named Vivian Cameron, who at this point you now know has disappeared at some point.
Oh, no.
It's weird, though. Vivian was like a shy, somewhat awkward woman, but everybody that knew her liked her. She was a very likable person. She was just a little bit shy and could be awkward sometimes.
Yeah,
you know?
Who doesn't love Vivian?
Yeah, I love Vivian. Well, I'm actually not going to say that.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
we all love a Vivian.
Viv.
Yeah.
But their marriage always seemed to be a struggle. And they actually had 2 young sons together. And it was like after the last son was born, that's when everything just really started to go downhill.
That's sad.
And she would ask Fergus to go to counseling, but he didn't want to. He was like very against it. And little did she know at the time, that was probably because he had a mistress.
Oh, Fergus.
Now, the first night anything happened between Fergus and Beth was like somewhat by accident. But this whole story, I'm like, was it an accident? Because that just seems a little like too lined up in the stars.
Did they accidentally?
They didn't accidentally like bump uglies.
Because I was like, you don't really accidentally.
No, that's not an accident. But Beth had invited some friends over who worked at the Penguin Parade to have like a drink after work. But the only person that showed up was Fergus. So you feel as though that must have been arranged.
I mean, here I am.
I don't crazy.
Know, but I'm just saying from my vantage point over here, looks a little sus.
Yeah, because Beth was also like a pretty like popular girl at that workplace. Like,
so why would no one
she had a big friend group. All the guys thought she was like a very attractive woman. Like, yeah, you know,
seems like a setup.
Hotshot Australian attorney Nicola Gaba was born into legal royalty. Her specialty? Representing some of the city's most infamous gangland criminals. However, while Nicola held the underworld's darkest secrets, the most dangerous secret was her own.
She's going to all the major groups within Melbourne's underworld, and she's informing on them all.
I'm Marcia Clark, host of the new podcast, Informants Lawyer X. In my long career in criminal justice as a prosecutor and defense attorney, I've seen some crazy cases, and this one belongs right at the top of the list.
She was addicted to the game she had created. She just didn't know how to stop.
Now, through dramatic interviews and access, I'll reveal the truth behind one of the world's most shocking legal scandals. Listen to Informants Lawyer X exclusively on Wondery Plus. Join Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, and listen to more Exhibit C true crime shows early and ad-free right now.
And they all hung out all the time, exactly.
Which, if he wasn't married, I'd be like, good plan,
I love
Beth.
it. Right.
I'd be like,
but he's married and a father of 2 children.
Yeah, that's no good.
So one thing led to another, and they did end up bumping uglies. And from that point on, Fergus was just totally smitten. He said that he would do anything he could to get extra time with Beth.
Well, then end your marriage, man.
Well, that's the thing. So they would sneak away into one of their cars during afternoon breaks to, you know. Or Fergus would like leave his house extra early in the morning to see Beth before the day started. And it's like,
you mean like leave his wife and children?
Yes,
to go
that's
see his mistress. Okay,
precisely what I mean. And it's like, for a guy that seemed to have absolutely no interest in fixing things with his wife, it's interesting that he didn't just separate from her.
That's the thing. I'm like, just separate,
right?
And then it's fine. You do whatever you want to do.
He's well to do. Like, it's not like he's gonna lose everything.
But
you know
I feel
what I mean?
like some people, like, because I think this in like so many instances where this kind of thing happens, where you're like, just divorce or like just separate, just break up.
Yeah.
Some people like that, like, forbidden fruit.
Yeah, because it's like,
it makes it more exciting. So they like that. And if they did separate from their wife,
then they'd probably just break up with the girl too.
Yeah, it just wouldn't be as fun. They like that they're like destroying lives.
Yeah, that's
like,
awesome.
And like doing it on the low.
Yeah.
Which is like such another level.
It's like the old expression, like, have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah,
it's like you can't though. Remember they told us that.
You can't do it.
No.
You can't do it. It's part of the expression.
It is. And the other thing is that if he had just separated from Vivian, none of this would have happened.
Yeah, and it's like then you could do whatever you want.
Exactly. You're
Go
a single
ahead.
dude.
If that's what you're into and you're not
How
into
about
being
it?
in a monogamous married relationship, then go do what you want to do, but don't drag someone else down.
Exactly. So the afternoon of September 22nd, 1986, Fergus decided that he was going to leave work early. And I saw in a couple sources that he went to Vivian's parents' home because that they were like out of town. So I don't know if he and Beth ended up like going there together or if he was just there alone and had some alone time. Oh. But then he did end up seeing Beth after that, and he went to her house. Okay. Now Beth was pretty sick. She had a sinus infection and like a flu-like thing going on. So I think he also just wanted to check in on her kind of thing. Mm-hmm. The problem was, though, that Vivian was starting to like get onto this whole thing. Like she was catching on to everything.
You always find out.
Well, and it's not like they were being secretive. Like, people used to see them, like, fooking in the car.
Yeah, it's like, come on.
Like, no. And everyone in the town had been talking for quite some time about Fergus and Beth's affair. Oh. And Vivian herself was starting to second-guess the looks that she would see Fergus and Beth share together. Because, remember, Beth works on their farm. Like, oh my God. She's seeing this, you know? And she had recently caught them hugging each other in the barn. And it was like not just like a friendly hug. Like she asked Fergus about it. And he actually said that she like kept punching him in the head afterwards. Like they got into like some crazy fight. Damn. And that's not good. He made her seem very, very abusive. Like, okay. But no one ever saw her hit him.
Yeah, so this is really just like...
It's just Fergus's
we're just
point
getting
of view.
Certain sides of the story.
Exactly.
Because that would not be cool.
No, that's not okay.
Obviously,
like it's not cool to cheat on people, but it's also not cool to abuse your spouse. Exactly. Yeah. The whole thing seems to be a big mess.
Yeah, it really is.
So Vivian did call Fergus, and she realized that he wasn't at work like he said he... Like, not only did he say he was going to be, she just, like, knew his schedule.
Yeah,
and she's like, you're supposed to be there. So she made the decision she was going to confront him later that night. Now, to pass the time, she invited Fergus's sister, Marnie, over for a glass of wine. You should always have a glass of wine before you're going to confront your cheating husband.
100%.
Calms the nerves.
Yeah.
Now, Vivian had told Marnie that she was worried that Fergus wasn't being faithful, but Marnie was like, I think everything's fine. Also, that's my brother, so I'm not going to out him.
Oh, what a weird position.
Yeah, the family seemed like a little too close because they all worked on the farm together. Not like a little too close, but they definitely... I think there's like some missing pieces to this story that some people have the answers to. But unfortunately, Fergus had no idea that his sister was up at bat for him all that time. And he didn't get home that night until 9:20. And then when he got home, he was like, oh, hey, ladies. And then he went and took a phone call in the other room because he was like constantly getting work phone calls.
Of course.
But he took like a wicked long phone call and then just walked back in. And when he walked back in the room, he said that he could tell that Vivian was like visibly shaken, like she was like upset, and that Marnie seemed agitated and like excused herself and was ready to go.
Oh, boy.
Now... So Marnie was like, peace out, see you later. And Vivian was like, Fergus, where have you been all this time?
Yeah, and now you've sat there on the phone forever afterwards.
Exactly, like you're just being rude. And so she just said, like, where have you been? Like, what were you doing? And he shockingly just confirmed all of her suspicions and admitted everything about his affair with Beth.
Damn.
He was like, I was at Beth's house, like, you're right. Like, we've been having an affair.
Whoa.
So Viv, rightfully so, lost her
yeah.
But then she took things a step too far and she smashed a wine glass over Fergus's head.
Oh, shit.
And then when it broke, she like stabbed him in the back with it.
Oh my God.
Like up the back. So that whole fiasco is going
like,
on. There's like children sleeping in like another part of the house. Fergus goes upstairs to like figure out what's going on with his head. She's probably just like trying to clean up or whatever. Damn. And then they finally realize that he needs to go to the hospital. Like he's bleeding really badly from his ear and his back.
Yeah, I mean, she stabbed him. So.
Yeah, literally.
That's bad.
That's not okay. So Vivian is like, you need to go to a hospital. Like I have to take you to the hospital. Like let's call Marnie back over here and she can watch the kids and we'll go get that taken care of.
Hello, Marnie. I stabbed your brother.
Yeah, literally. But sweet Marnie, the poor thing. So Marnie was like, okay, coming right back. And her husband Ian went along with her back to Fergus's yet again.
Oh my God.
Yet again.
This is bonkers.
So at the hospital, Fergus got his wounds all stitched up. He needed stitches to his ear and part of his back. And when he and Vivian got home around 12:30, they sent Marnie and Ian on their way so that they could speak privately.
Yeah.
And it was then decided that they were absolutely going to get a divorce.
For sure.
So I read in a couple sources that Vivian agreed that the children would be better off staying with Fergus on the farm and she would go back to Melbourne with her parents. But anyone who knew Vivian was like, no, that conversation, like, there's no way that it went like that, because she was obsessed with her kids.
Yeah.
Like, just a very doting mother, like, never would have walked away from
She
them.
never would have wanted to be like, you take them for the most part. No.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And actually later, Fergus himself told investigators that he knew if he ended things with Vivian, that she would be the one to stay with the kids, and he and Beth would be living somewhere else. Like not on the island. So they finished their conversation, and Vivian was like, you know what, why don't you spend the night at Marnie's house? Like, I think enough has gone down here.
Why don't you get the out?
I don't really want to sleep in the same bed as you.
No.
Please leave. So she drops him off at Marnie and Ian's house. And, you know, one might think it's so that she could have some time alone to reflect, maybe cool off. Maybe she did that for a little bit. I don't really know. She returned home. She had a few hours. And around 3 a.m., she phoned a friend, Robin Dixon. And she said to Robin Dixon, hey, girl, can you watch the kids? Because I have to take Fergus to the hospital. So can you come and just, like, they're sleeping. Can you just hang out with them?
At 3 a.m.?
At 3 a.m. And also, she had already taken Fergus to the hospital. Like, that already happened.
That was already a thing that happened.
So what was Viv up to? Well, nothing good, that's for sure. Now, when Robin got to the home, none of the adults were there. Vivian was already gone. So the kids were just sleeping in their beds by themselves. Yeah.
Jesus.
Exactly. I couldn't find their ages, but they were always referred to as young.
Yeah.
Now, Robin assumed that she must have left in a hurry, too, because her purse was still there at the house. So the next morning, Robin still has the kids. Vivian never showed back up to get them.
What?
And Robin wasn't getting any kind of answer when she tried to call Vivian. So she said, or so she needed to call Fergus because she had to go to work. She's like, hey, Fergus, I have to go to work. This is what happened. Meanwhile, Fergus is like, what? Like,
he's like, no.
Like, she didn't take me she took me to the hospital one time, not two times.
Way earlier.
And he went to go pick up the boys. But now he was really concerned that something might have happened to Beth.
Oh.
Which seems to be a pretty big leap. Like, Vivian's missing and, like, didn't pick up the kids, but why is your immediate thought, like, oh, I hope Beth's okay?
He must have, like, something bad must have happened to Beth.
So, the night before...
Like, maybe you should worry about, like, your actual wife or the mother of your child for, like,
literally
1 second.
missing.
Like, just 1 second.
Just quick.
Maybe just put Beth over here for a second.
This much.
Maybe just, like...
Yeah, we're not a fan of Fergus, but
1
he's
minute,
rich,
just
so.
give her a little bit of a thought.
Exactly. So it's like, what? But I guess the night before at the hospital, he alleged that Vivian made some kind of threat against Beth.
Of
saying,
course
like,
she did.
I'm going to kill that little bitch.
Of course
but,
she
like,
did. You find out your spouse is cheating on you,
That's
of
your
course
first
you're going to
response.
say,
Like,
I don't care who you, and if you're listening right now and saying, like, no, I would, you would.
You absolutely
would.
would. You
And
would.
I'm not saying you follow through on it and that it's okay.
No,
I'm
no,
just
no,
saying,
no.
If my spouse was cheating on me, the first thing I would say was, I'm going to kill her.
Yeah, you might.
And you.
You
for
might
that
get a
matter.
little hyperbolic in that situation.
Allow
Just a smidgen.
yourself to get slightly hyperbolic.
Yeah.
That's all you can get hyperbolic when there's an affair.
No, he, like I said, he hadn't taken that seriously at the time, but clearly something was going on now. So I think this is super weird. He asked his brother and his brother-in-law to go check on Beth so that he could, like, take care of the kid situation. That just seems weird to me.
Yeah.
I don't have, like, a reason that I could put into words.
But it's just something about it.
It's like, why was that your first thought?
Yeah.
And then why did you send them to go find her?
Yeah, that's strange.
I don't know. It's just weird.
This whole thing is strange.
Oh, just wait. It's also terrifying. So Donald, his brother, and Ian, his brother-in-law, headed to the house that Beth lived in. And they made their way in through an unlocked back door that was, like, slightly open still. So automatically...
Already things are going great.
Automatically not good. And it did not take long for them to find her. Her bedroom was, like, one of the first off of the hallway, and she was lying on the floor almost right in the doorway of her bedroom. Her eyes were wide open and staring at the ceiling, and there was a blanket covering her body all the way up to her nose.
Damn.
Now that was on purpose. It was almost like whoever did this covered Beth with the blanket so that the removal would somehow be more shocking than just finding her the way she was.
Like a reveal.
Yeah, because I know sometimes people are like, oh, well, that's like a sign of like
someone caring about someone.
Exactly.
Not always.
And I think in this case, it was a little more like theatrical.
Yeah, for sure.
So Donald and Ian obviously knew that Beth was clearly not okay and definitely not alive. They saw blood pooled all around her body. There was blood all over the room. There was a bloody handprint that had been made on the wall during the struggle.
Damn.
It was later determined to be Beth's handprint. So they ran to I believe it's the Cowes police station or Cowes police station. And they told Sergeant Cliff Ash that there had been a domestic argument over in Rill, I believe is how you say it.
What?
A domestic argument.
How are you making that leap?
There's literally blood all over the place. There's bloody handprints on the walls.
Like,
this
what?
woman is covered in a blanket with blood pooled all around her. She's very clearly deceased, and you're going to call that
argument?
a domestic argument.
Wow, they're really burying the lead.
That's not domestic. What?
And it's not an argument.
It's
It's
final.
definitely not an argument.
In a quiet suburb, a community is shattered by the death of a beloved wife and mother. But this tragic loss of life quickly turns into something even darker. Her husband had tried to hire a hitman on the dark web to kill her. And she wasn't the only target. Because buried in the depths of the internet is the kill list, a cache of chilling documents containing names, photos, addresses, and specific instructions for people's murders. This podcast is the true story of how I ended up in a race against time to warn those whose lives were in danger. And it turns out, convincing a total stranger someone wants them dead is not easy. Follow Kill List on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to Kill List and more Exhibit C true crime shows like Morbid early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus. Check out Exhibit C in the Wondery app for all your true crime listening.
So when the responding officers, and just trigger warning, this is very intense.
When they showed up to this, they were probably like, an argument?
You undersold
like
this.
You really undersold
I'm pretty
this.
sure the sergeant was like, yeah, guys, like, that's not what that's called.
Just for future ref.
I guess playing devil's advocate, because I guess that's my new thing. And maybe they were very, very shocked and they just didn't know what to say.
Yeah,
but
I would definitely go and be like, there's blood everywhere. Come help.
Yeah.
That's if I was very upset.
I don't know. It's very strange. So when the responding officers arrived on the scene, what they found was jaw dropping. And if you missed it again, trigger warning.
Trigger.
So when the blanket was removed from Beth's body, it became clear that her nightgown was pulled, completely lifted up, and exposing both her upper and lower body. She had been stabbed and slashed at multiple times, so badly that her neck bone was exposed.
Damn.
Her upper lip had been sliced in half, and the knife had knocked out her front left tooth.
Blah.
And that was now laying beside her body.
I'm touching my teeth right now. Like,
I know, teeth things
You're
freak me
all in
out.
there.
I watched like a quick little YouTube thing and it like showed a tooth flying out and I was like, how dare you do that to me?
How dare you?
She clearly, though, had put up a fight against whoever had done this to her. Her hands were covered in defensive wounds. One was in between the webbing, the webbing between the thumb and index finger. And this is the most grisly discovery of all.
Oh, no.
The letter A had been carved deep into her chest. It covered nearly her entire torso, going from underneath her breast to the tip of her hip bones on each side.
Like the scarlet letter A?
Like the scarlet letter A. They got so literary with it.
That is...
One side was carved so deep that the skin was like filleted and there was fat exposed.
Oh!
Yes, they do believe, I mean, everything else, like she died a horrible, horrible death.
Yeah.
But they do believe that she was dead when this was carved. Yeah.
Holy shit.
So at least there's that, but she suffered.
To put a scarlet letter A.
Seriously.
That's like a movie.
Literally. Now, there was some evidence left at the scene to be gathered. Next to Beth's body was a knife that was covered in blood. There were paper towels next to the sink soaked with blood. And they found a few cigarette butts that made it seem like whoever did this, like, wasn't really in a rush to get out of there.
Just hanging
like,
out.
Definitely, like, hung out for a minute.
Huh.
It's so weird. It was later determined that whoever had slashed Beth's throat had turned her head to the side when they were cutting, because the cut was not in one clean sweeping motion. It was like a few jagged cuts. Yeah, like a carve, which is interesting. And they knew that her head had been turned to the side. So they assumed that somebody was maybe obviously standing behind her and turned her head to the side, because only one of her carotid arteries was severed and the other was intact.
Huh. Yeah. So they must have like been behind her
and twisted
grabbed
her head
and pulled her head back to
right
the side to
right.
like get a better view of her neck.
Exactly. Oh, now it turned out that the gash in her throat measured 11 centimeters wide and 6.5 centimeters deep.
Damn.
So, like, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I would say that's nearly decapitated.
That's rough.
Like, real close, at least.
That is real rough.
In one source, I saw it described as, quote, cut to the neck bone like a slaughterhouse animal.
Oh.
I can't imagine walking onto this scene.
And when you think it's a domestic argument.
Yeah,
that's
seriously.
like really ringing in my head. Of,
a
like,
domestic
you walk in there.
Argument.
Wow.
Now, Vivian was automatically the number one person of interest because,
of course,
by now everybody knew the affair was out in the open. They had gone to the hospital the night before.
That scarlet letter A is pretty damning, I will say.
Yeah, that's the thing. And the Land Cruiser that she was presumably traveling in was spotted not only at 3:30 a.m. by Beth's neighbor. So Beth's neighbor saw the family car pull up to the neighborhood. But then it was spotted again around 5 a.m. on the Phillip Island Bridge. Now, it would be another few hours before the police located it in the same spot where it had last been seen. I think it was around 4 p.m. when they were able to get to it. But we can assume that it had been parked there since 5 a.m. because there was many sightings of it.
Okay.
So she definitely was at the house at some point and then parked on the bridge. So upon the discovery of the cruiser and what they found inside, investigators put two and two together, and they assumed that Vivian Cameron had jumped off the bridge to her death after viciously murdering Beth.
Damn.
Now, inside the car, they found 2 packs of cigarettes that were definitely Vivian. She smoked a lot. What was called a face washer, which if you're from Australia, is that literally just a washcloth? Like, I gotta know.
Yeah, like help.
But it was,
what is that?
It was doused in blood, and they found a carving knife. Now, I couldn't find anything to say that there was blood on the carving knife, but there was a carving knife in the car.
Which, like, why you have a carving knife.
And also interesting because her neck was carved.
Literally
open.
carved.
Right. But I don't know if there was blood on it, so.
Okay.
A little weird.
So it's just there.
Just there.
As far as we know.
Now, shockingly enough, Vivian Cameron was never seen again. They never found her body. There were divers that scanned the water beneath the bridge. There were helicopters searching, and they didn't even find one inkling of her left behind in the water. And people think that's weird because she wore glasses. So those would have fallen off, and you would think that you would have found those.
Yeah.
Like if she had jumped into the water. And I guess that night she had been wearing a scarf, and people were like, wouldn't that have like come off?
Yeah, you would think.
It's just hard to believe that like nothing turned up. Like I was watching this little clip on it, and somebody was like, not even like a shoe, nothing.
Yeah, nothing. That's what's shocking.
It doesn't make any sense. And the other thing is that if she did jump off this particular bridge to commit suicide, she would have been the first person to do so because there are 0 other registered suicides from that bridge.
Really?
Not a single one other than presumably hers. But it seems unlikely to anyone who knew Vivian that she would, 1, commit such a gruesome murder, and number 2, take her own life.
Yeah.
People around town knew her as even-tempered, funny, a doting mom. Like that wasn't her. She loved her kids. She was always with them. And actually the same afternoon that she went missing, it was like somewhat significant because she was supposed to bring fruit and milk in for her son's class. It sounded like a volunteer thing.
Sad.
I know.
That's like really sad.
It's terrible. So if Vivian didn't do this to Beth, then like who did? And why did they do it?
Yeah, and that A is very like...
The A really just...
If that wasn't there, I'd be like, wow, I'd still be like, who did that? Like, that's very coincidental, but that A is
A is like...
Come on.
A smoke sign.
Yeah.
But it later became known...
A smoke sign.
A smoke sign, a smoke signal. It's still the morning. It later became known, though, that Beth had a stalker right around the time of her death. And things had recently become heated when she asked him to, like, get away from her.
Ooh.
So the guy stalking her was apparently somebody that she had some kind of relationship with in the past, but she had broken things off. The guy, like, never got the memo that she wasn't interested. He would sit in his car outside of her house at night. He would mow her lawn when she wasn't home, which, like, if I could have a stalker do that. No, I'm totally kidding. No, I'm totally kidding. And he would also just leave flowers for her all the time.
Yeah, no.
It's super creepy.
And it's like, and it makes sense that if she did have a stalker, it's like, did this it said everybody knew about this affair.
The affair, so
did
A
the
could
stalker
be him.
use it as a...
Like, you're an adulteress, like,
Yeah,
you're
like
supposed to be with me.
Exactly, and make it, like, pointing towards them
Right.
to try to throw everybody off the trail.
Right.
I mean, it's a very possible
It is.
scenario.
And no, so not too long before her murder, she had come home to him mowing the lawn, and she had had enough. She was like, "This needs to stop. You need to leave me alone. You can't mow my lawn anymore. Like, you gotta get away from me.
Stop mowing my lawn.
Come on."
Stop doing it.
And later, when she retold the story to friends, she didn't seem to be, like, afraid of this guy. And this is actually on video, or audio tape, because she had a friend that was, like, living a little bit far away, and they used to send, like, tapes back and forth to each other.
Oh.
So actually Fergus is on this particular tape.
Oh.
Which is interesting. And they're just kind of, like, talking about this guy in a joking manner, but just some of the comments that she makes, like, I think she's trying to make it seem like she's not scared, but just you can tell that she is scared a little bit.
It's like, it's putting on, like, false bravado just to be like, because you're trying to convince yourself that you're not as scared as you are.
I think that's exactly what it was.
And it's always pretty obvious when you're doing that.
Yeah. Now, I guess he was cleared by police, this particular man, but he left Phillip Island not that long after Beth's murder, which that's always weird.
Always.
Like, that's
always
shady.
Always.
Shady business.
It's always sus. If you were planning on moving out before that all happened, you got to change your plans.
Yeah,
man.
like, change the closing date. I don't know what to tell you.
Change the plans.
You gotta.
Because no matter what, it looks weird.
Yeah, what is it called? Like, when you rent to somebody else, like, for a little minute because you can't live there, like, subletting.
Yeah,
you go sublet your place to someone else.
Yeah, just for a little while till it all chills out.
Now, later on, this particular guy was actually talking to one of Beth's friends and encouraged this friend not to speak with the police.
What?
Yeah.
There's some shady going on here.
And it's so shady that that's, like, all you can find on it. Like,
yeah, like, that's it.
Like, I read Vicky's entire book, and that's what she has so much information in there about, like, other stuff, but there's certain things that everybody's
that you
just like,
can't crack through.
But what?
Yeah.
Like, I don't get it. Now, Beth's friends also later confirmed that she was thinking of ending things with Fergus, or at the very least, like, hitting him up with some kind of ultimatum. She was really struggling with the fact that this was going on with a married man. She knew his children because she worked on the farm, and she told her friends that she didn't want to be the one to break up a family. So she was having a hard time with it.
I'm just gonna stay over here.
Yeah,
I'll stay in my lane.
Yeah,
here. Yeah, I mean, yeah, totally.
So some of her friends in the beginning, which would have been us, were like, "You need to run the other way. This is this can quickly become a dangerous situation to get involved with somebody else's husband."
Yeah.
Like, nobody thought that this was gonna happen.
Of course not. But
in general, like,
you're
playing with fire.
Yeah, like, getting involved in a situation like that, obviously, again, no one deserves that kind of thing by any stretch of the imagination. But you are putting yourself in a position where you are upsetting people on a galactic level.
Yeah.
And it's like, whether it's his fault or not, you know what I mean? Like, you are going to be a target of hatred in this scenario. So it's like, you got to back out of that. You got to get out of that. And when there's kids involved, that brings it to a whole nother level. And it's like emotions go so much higher because now it's a family. Now there's kids involved.
Right.
There's just too much. It's like you just
too
gotta
many layers.
Run the other way.
Right.
There's
so many fish in the sea.
There's so many fish in the sea.
But we can't, we can't go back here.
We cannot.
So Beth, this is like just like a spooky little tidbit. Beth and her friends had taken a trip about a year before she died. I think they were in the Maldives. And she spent a good time talking to them about her and Fergus's relationships. They all kind of were talking about their relationships. And while they were away, I guess there was a man that approached them, and he was like, "Oh, I read palms. Like, can I read you guys' palms?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, like that's fun. Like, sure." So the two friends went first, and he did the whole thing, And then he Beth presented her palm to be read, and he looked at it and paused and like looked back up at her with this weird look. And he was like, I'm too tired. Like, I'm sorry. I can't read your palm. Like, I gotta go.
What?
He was like, he made up like some weird excuse and was like, I can't do it.
I would have been terrified if I were her, because that's not.
Oh my, this man approaches
bad
you.
Bad omen.
And your two friends are like, you're gonna get married and have this many kids, and like, maybe next summer might be difficult, but you'll get through it.
You're gonna have your hot girl summer next summer.
And then he gets to you and he's like,
no, sorry, I'm too tired.
Like,
I'd be like, you got to tell me what's going to happen now, dude.
Right.
Like, something bad's going to happen.
So I guess at the time, I mean, they were young. They were all like 20. Like, Beth was 23 when she passed away. Or excuse me, when she was murdered. At the time, like, they didn't think anything of it. But looking back, that must be so haunting.
That's so eerie.
Because it's like, did he look at her palm and see that this was going to happen?
Or did he see that? He probably saw that something, like, bad was
like
going to happen.
Nefarious. Like, she was going to get murdered.
She was going to die in some bad way.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah. And a lot of these people won't like tell you the bad stuff.
Yeah.
Like, they just won't.
Or like they'll ask you too, like, do you want to hear the bad stuff?
Yeah.
And I always say no.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I don't. I usually just say like, I don't want to know if I'm gonna die.
You know what? John has like a pretty like real psychic in his family tree.
Yeah.
Who has like since passed away like a long time ago, but she was like a known.
You have to
one.
say how she was born.
And
that's crazy.
and I guess like psychics are born. Like, there's this like lore that they're born with like a veil on their face, like a membrane of some sort, and she was.
That's so crazy.
And John's grandmother never got readings from her because she was like, because she would only give you the good and the bad. She was like, I will not leave out the bad. You have to take it all, or you don't take any of it.
Right.
And John's grandmother was like, no, I don't want it. And I was like, I feel you, dude.
I wouldn't want to know.
Way. She was like, nope, I don't need to know. Because she was like, if I hear something bad, that's all I'm going to think about.
In my opinion, fate is fate.
I don't want to know.
No.
Don't.
It's going to happen anyway.
Because then that's all I'm going to think about.
At some point, I'll know.
That's like, that's too much for me.
Way too much.
It's wild.
It's so creepy. Now, back to this. So that all happened, and then they all looked back and were like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
But back to this whole thing about Vivian killing herself. The people that aren't buying it point to this next piece of information as the smoking gun signal. So Glenda Frost, I thought you were going to laugh at that.
I was, but I was like...
I was, but then I thought that it wasn't funny.
The smoking gun signal.
So Glenda Frost, a woman who Vivian worked with at the community house, actually spoke with police and told them that she had received a phone call on September 23rd, and she knew for sure that she was speaking to Vivian.
Huh.
They apparently spoke of sewing patterns and a specific gift that was going to be for another coworker. So this was a conversation that like Glenda was like, nope, this is Vivian. Like only she knew about this specific pattern and maybe this specific gift. Huh. And she also said that she thought she heard Vivian's 2 young sons in the background. And she was like, there's no way that she just committed a frenzied murder like Beth's and then just called me at 10 a.m. like, hey, what about the sewing pattern? And she was with her kids. Or like Glenda thought that she was with her kids. Or at least 2 voices were in the background.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So that was 10 a.m. and Glenda had somebody there to back her up. She was working with a friend named Pam that day at home, like doing some sewing stuff. And Pam confirmed not only the day, but also the time. Because this, like the police went over there to hear this whole thing. And obviously they were like, oh, you probably messed up the day. Like,
yeah, of course.
But I guess it was like there was going to be some specific holiday on Thursday, but the people in Phillips Island like celebrated the particular holiday on Monday, so they were home for the day. So she was
so
like,
it made it very easy.
I know that it was Monday.
Yeah.
Now, the time happened to be 5 hours after the car was spotted on the bridge, though, and Vivian, according to the police, should have already been dead at that point.
Huh.
Yeah. And by the way, remember how Robin had noticed Vivian's purse was at the house when she went to go watch the boys? Robin said not only was it there that night, but it was there the next morning. That doesn't make any sense, though, because Vivian's purse was later found abandoned in the car.
In the car?
Mm-hmm. But Robin was like, no, I saw her purse that day. Like, I know. And she was like, it was that purse.
Wow, the plot thickens.
The plot thickens so much, and it's only going to get thicker.
This is oozy.
So that doesn't make any sense. So that led some people to believe that maybe she had come home at some point. She must have. But that doesn't make sense because she wouldn't have been able to take the Land Cruiser because so many people had seen it parked on the bridge. So was she working with like somebody else and like she stopped home?
What? Add some cornstarch to this because it's thickening.
It's thickening, literally. And the purse would have had to have been placed in the car sometime after Robin left and before the police got to the bridge. So Robin left probably like in the morning at some point. I don't know the exact time, but the police got to the car at 4. So I guess there was time for it to be maybe planted there to make it look weird or like...
This is wild.
I just don't understand the significance and the point. Like, why would you do that? And again, we would have to assume that Vivian would have had to go in a different car. So it's like, wouldn't you think that she would have been spotted at least? Like, I remember when like Thelma Todd was supposed to be dead at a certain point and like 4 people were like, oh no, I saw her in a car. Or, like, I talked to her on the phone.
Because I mean, I assume if you're leaving the car there, you're trying to make it look like you're dead. So
absolutely,
obviously,
you like leave everything there.
But it's like, this is all just so strange.
It's
the way
super
it's
weird.
Set up.
And it's only going to get weirder.
Really?
Because in the 1990s, DNA testing, baby.
DNA.
So they were able to do some DNA testing on some of the evidence. Dude, I can't. So strangely enough, Vivian's blood was found on the knife left beside Beth's body. But none of Vivian's DNA was found on Beth's body. Again, her DNA was found on the knife, like her blood was found on the knife.
Deoxyribonucleic acid.
Correct. But not on Vivian, not on Beth, who she presumably, like,
viciously
grisly,
murdered.
like, went crazy and murdered her. There's no way.
Yeah, that's our head scratcher.
And one of the other things that they thought when they had like looked over Beth's body was that whoever had killed her had like smeared the blood all around her, like had like rubbed it in almost.
Ooh.
Which is like, I don't even know why you would do that.
I don't even know what the significance of that is.
Exactly. And then, so the knife lying next to Beth's body was covered in blood that could belong to Vivian, or about 30% of the population with the same blood type and groupings. So it's not necessarily like people love to be like, and that was her blood. It can always like,
I know,
be attributed to a couple other people. And I feel like that's important to note because the other thing is that the knife laying next to Beth's body didn't necessarily match up with the wounds that were covering her body or the puncture marks in the clothing that she had been wearing, which is weird. Now, the knife lying beside her was just like a straight up kitchen knife, but the markings on the body and the clothes show like one large tear, vertical tear, and then 2 smaller ones like next to it on the bottom.
Oh, okay.
Now, Vicky, who co-wrote the book that I mentioned in the beginning, she actually spoke with a knife expert after speaking with the forensic scientist who went over all the evidence in Beth's case. And he doesn't think that the knife lying next to Beth's body was used to kill her.
It makes sense. If it's just a plain old kitchen knife, that doesn't seem like that would make that cut.
No, definitely not. Now, so he doesn't think that either. And I mean, if he's forensic scientist, like he knows what he's talking about, you know? But so Vicky decided to go a step further, and she spoke with a knife expert who told her about this knife that was popular around the time that Beth was killed. And he told her that now the knife was actually banned, like they're not sold anymore.
Really?
But he did send her some sketches of it. And it had one long blade and then 2 sharp prongs on either side. So if you were to stab somebody, like going down, it would be like the one marking and then the 2 on the side. So it would make sense.
Oh, I think I know exactly what kind of knife that is.
I can post the
picture
sketch
it in
of
my
it.
head.
Yeah, it's like it almost looks like a fleur-de-lis. It's the only thing I can think to compare it to.
I was thinking of. Yes.
Yeah. So that's the kind of thing that it was. But I didn't see anything else that like went from there. Like I was like, okay, so we don't think that was the knife, but like it has her blood on it, but the blood, like her DNA isn't on Beth. I don't understand.
How, when, where?
And then every time you start to think, okay, like, is Vivian innocent? There's another bend in the road. Her DNA was found only on a towel, the knife, and then cigarette butts found in the house. So she was there.
I was going to say, so she was there.
She absolutely was there. Now, the towel that was found in the bathroom only contained Vivian's blood. None of Beth's blood was found on this specific towel. I mean, I guess you could assume that if Viv had used this to clean up, there would be plenty of blood to clean up, then Beth's blood would have gotten on it. Unless somehow, I mean, it would be remarkable if she didn't cut herself while committing this crazy
That's
act.
what I would. And Beth had a lot of defensive wounds, so she was fighting back.
Exactly. So I would think that Vivian definitely got cut somehow and maybe just used that towel.
Yeah.
So it's so weird because you think you know.
Yeah. I mean, she was there.
She was there.
Like, what was she doing there?
Yeah. It's so crazy.
Yeah, I think it doesn't bode well.
No, it definitely doesn't. Now, Vivian's blood was also found in her own home. Although she hadn't been treated at the hospital after, during her and Fergus's visit there, she wasn't treated for anything.
Hurt. Yeah.
So that's why some people think that the crime wasn't committed solely by Vivian and have questioned things over the years of, was somebody else there with her?
Yeah.
Because maybe she went home to, maybe, say goodbye to her kids or something like that. And they don't remember it because they were so little or they didn't wake up or something.
Yeah.
And she had gotten blood on the floor from a wound that she had.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense to me.
Absolutely.
I think that's the
for
only
sure a possibility
thing that you could think of. Now, but I really don't know who would have been there that night if she hadn't done it alone, because Fergus was at his sister and brother-in-law's house the entire night before.
Yeah.
And no one heard him leave, and they checked on him early the next morning and he was sleeping.
Yeah.
But some people do find it shady because Fergus held a memorial at the farm for Vivian when she technically wasn't officially dead yet. I guess when somebody disappears, it has to be 7 years before they're ruled dead.
Declared dead.
But and it obviously hadn't been 7 years yet. And other people point out the fact that Vivian had a very big share in the Phillip Island Grand pre-unit or circuit too.
Oh.
So it's could that have something to do with
That's interesting.
it? Because she did have a will in place, and I guess that share would have been left to someone. So maybe they kind of just had to have this memorial and figure out what to do with her will.
Oh, maybe.
And then the people that are sort of on Fergus's side are it also was a really important thing to do for the boys because they need to experience a normal grieving process.
I can understand. Yep.
So I don't think that's weird.
As much as I want to kick Fergus in the ass just for being a husband.
Yeah, I don't think that's shady.
I don't think, and I also don't think that leads to you automatically are a murderer as well, or No,
I think you're just kind of a jerk.
You can be in one spot and not in every spot, you know? So I don't want to totally cast him as and I agree with you. I think he was just a shitty husband.
And I think he was trying to do it for his kids.
And I think that might have been for the kids.
Absolutely.
It would make sense. I would hope that would be the reason because that would be a healthy thing to do.
I would think so. So a coronial inquest did put some people's mind to rest. I guess in July of 1988, the coroner B.J. Mayer said of Vivian, quote, "Although her body has not been found, I am satisfied that she is dead and that she leapt from the San Remo Bridge in the water below. And I am satisfied that the deceased contributed to the cause of death of Beth."
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I could see all of that being true.
I could too. I think people kind of want to make it more of a mystery than it is.
Yeah, it's always one of those things where you think she took off and she's living somewhere and suddenly she's going to pop up somewhere.
I mean, they never found her body.
Possible.
And it is crazy.
It's possible.
Some of the divers were no, we searched every single inch of that place.
I mean, when you don't have a body, it is always possible.
Yeah.
You can't 100% say.
Exactly.
Sure, he can be satisfied that she's dead and that's fine. And we can all say, sure, that makes sense.
Right.
But there is a possibility because there is no body.
Absolutely.
And we don't know.
Even some of the detectives, the original investigators on this case, have differing opinions from each other of
I
what
believe.
happened.
I believe that they probably have so many different theories.
Oh, I mean, you would have to
because it's just
you
all
can't
out
stop
in the
talking
open.
about that either.
Yeah, it's just wild.
But people on Phillip Island apparently do not like to talk about the murder of Beth.
Really?
Or the disappearance of Vivian.
I mean,
we actually had a listener who suggested this, and they spent some time living on Phillip Island, and they weren't able to talk to any of the locals about it.
Really?
And then Vicky's book that I've mentioned was banned on the island. You could not buy it on the island. And then there was a newspaper that was put out on one day that was supposed to be it was a full headline all about the murder and the disappearance, and a group of people went around and bought every single one so that you couldn't purchase them.
What?
Which is weird.
That's
It's weird,
What's
dude.
going on in there?
And Vicky said when she tried to speak with people on the island about it, they were very reluctant to speak with her, and they warned her like not to write the book. They were like, you could be sued, or like it's just not a good idea. But she was like, they're just trying to intimidate me, like, oh, I'm gonna write my book.
They have a penguin parade. You're not supposed to be like covering up a murder.
There's more penguin than people. Was it the penguins took all the newspapers?
You guys are trying to like, just protect all the penguins?
Right.
Because, wow.
It's so crazy, dude. But that is the case of the Phillip Island murder.
Nuts.
I think you should all go listen to like the 10-part like that Vicky has done, because I can't even imagine. I bet it's amazing. I want to listen to it now. I'm always so reluctant to listen to a podcast if I'm going to do a podcast on it.
Yeah, of course.
Because like you don't want
to listen after.
Yeah, you don't want to like subconsciously like have something in your mind and then you're like, why'd I say that?
Yeah, you think like their theory is now your theory.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like, you don't want that to subconsciously happen.
But now I'm excited to listen to that.
That's what I always love to do, is listen to it after we do the case.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, and 9 times out of 10, I'm like, oh man, that's such a good like theory or something.
Well, if I hear anything good, I can share it on like the next episode and just be like, oh my God, according to Vicky, this.
Listen.
But definitely also buy her book, The Phillip Island Murder. It's by her and a man named Paul Dealey. And he was involved in writing the newspaper headlines.
Man.
Yeah, he worked for the particular newspaper that like put out the papers.
That is so wild.
It's crazy.
That's wild.
This entire case, I've been having nightmares about it.
The A is so, like, that is such a piece of evidence. I mean, that's to me, that's a smoking gun almost, because it's just so, it's on the nose.
Yeah.
It's so pointing to what is going on here.
And this was just pure rage.
Well, that's
like the way that she was killed.
Yeah.
Rage.
Like absolute rage.
There's no other. So, but it's like, could it have been Vivian? I think did it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, it sounds like she did.
I mean, her DNA is like there and shit.
Yeah, I don't know how
her blood is on the towels. Like
something bad happened at that place.
But like, what if Vivian and the stalker like met up? Because they were like,
that's the other thing. It's like, you don't know.
Maybe she knew him. It's a small island.
Yeah, and apparently everybody knew everybody,
right?
Because everybody knew like the affair and everything, and then everybody's so reluctant to talk about it now. I think it's because they are so tight knit that they know everybody's stuff, and they're like, no. Like, I think it's like one of those like unspoken pacts that like we don't talk about it.
Well, and I think they protect their own over
that's
there,
what I mean.
because
I think they're like,
the Cameron family is a very prominent family with like business dealings everywhere on that island. So I think people are like,
I'm not talking about them. I'm not doing anything with this. And I honestly, I can't really.
And Fergus, I'm pretty sure, still lives on the island.
Yeah.
So.
Whoa.
Crazy, dude.
That's crazy. I mean, poor Beth.
I know.
She got wrapped up in a bad situation.
That's exactly what it was. And it's sad because it seems like she was kind of getting to the point where she was like,
where she was seeing that it was a bad situation.
Do this anymore. Like, you need to leave your wife, or we need to end things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, Phillip Island.
Phillip Island with the penguins and the murders.
Man, you have the best and the worst.
You really do.
That?
You really do.
You have a penguin parade.
You literally have a penguin parade. I want to go to that so badly.
You have a little community of penguins. A huge little community of penguins.
A bunch of people requested this case. I saw I think there was 5 separate emails in our inbox being like, please do this.
Awesome.
So
yeah, your suggestions are the tits.
Yeah, literally. I've been finding so many new things that I'm like going to shout you guys out and be like, another suggestion.
Because you guys are the best.
We love you.
But yeah, that's crazy. And thank you for that.
You're welcome so much.
And we stay tuned for some cool stuff this week.
Yeah, we got cool stuff going on.
We got some cool stuff.
And we hope you keep listening.
And we hope you
keep
it
weird. But not so weird that you just like go, not so weird that you don't just like go to the penguin parade and stay there and like have so much fun on Phillip Island. Like, definitely don't murder anybody on Phillip Island because you don't want to keep it that weird. Thank you and good night. Thank you again, good night.
Bye, Phillip Island.
So insane.
If you like Morbid, you can listen early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app or on Apple Podcasts. Prime members can listen ad-free on Amazon Music. Before you go, tell us about yourself by filling out a short survey at Wondery.com/survey.